Good morning, this is Diana Block. I'm your online instructor for organizational behavior. This is the Monday morning of week 5 and our fall of 2014 quarter. So, in week 5, we're going to read chapters 9 and 10 in our textbook. And chapters 9 and 10 deal with group dynamics. In chapter 9, we start our introduction to groups and how they behave, and there's a lot of good information in chapter 9. And we're talking about influence within groups. Then in chapter 10, we continue on to talk about how to make teams more effective. Team effectiveness is the focus in chapter 10. In the discussion for Unit 5, you're asked to think about a small group that you know that has had power. Could be a group you're part of now or some previous group. Some people I know haven't been in the workplace in a while, and it's okay if it's not a work group, just some group, whether it is a volunteer group or a scout group or a student council group from high school. But some group that you were a part of, whether it was a formal group or an informal group, and explain why the group was memorable to you, first of all, and then discuss the group regarding some of the topics in our text. The size of the group, what were the goals, if there were informal rules, what were they, um, and what were some of the other roles within the group. Did the group have uh, formal and or informal leaders? Provide some information about this group and try to tie in the various concepts that we're learning about in Unit 5. So we're talking about maybe motivation within the group cohesion, the group social identity, whatever information stands out for you about the particular group that you're writing about. And so that's going to be your discussion assignment for this week. And then you've got a regular assignment based off of the uh, articles at the end of the chapter. Sorry about that. Lost my place. Okay, here we go. Unit 5. Your article this week is on page 282, 283. Actually, it goes all the way to 284. And so in this article, you're going to learn about a group of people that work together, and you're going to answer the 4 questions at the end of the article. So the questions are actually all the way on page 284. So if you look at these questions that go along with this article, the first question is, why is this group a team? And this group isn't a team just because they work together. So that's the easy answer. That's not what we're looking for. If you go into chapter 9, about page 243, there is an actual definition of what makes a group a team. Every group of people is not a team. So when you look at the definition of what a team is and what makes a group of team, explain how that definition applies to the group that we're looking at in this article. That's what we're asking you to do in the first question. Explain using the technical organizational behavior definition of a team why that definition applies to this particular group. Then the next question asks, what characteristics of the team predispose it to ineffective decisions? Again, we're asking about specific information that comes out of this chapter. If you look at chapters 268 through the next 3 or 4 pages after that, it talks about group decision making and some of the reasons that groups might lean towards ineffective decisions, some of the things that might influence a group to have them make decisions that are not effective. So there's various things listed there over those 4 or 5 pages about team decision making and effectiveness. The next question, question 3, asks specifically about groupthink. And groupthink is a specific term in organizational behavior, and it's defined in page 268. And also the various characteristics or symptoms of groupthink are outlined on page 268 and 269. So we're asking which of these specific characteristics in this chapter, in chapter 10, apply to this particular group that we're looking at in the article. And then the last question asks your thoughts about whether or not the group leader in this group is effective. So you'll use all the information from your reading in these chapters 9 and 10 to address that question. So again, remember these questions are asking you about specific concepts within the chapter reading. Make sure you're using specific concepts and theories, terminology from the chapter to answer your questions. So those are your assignments for this week. I do want to take some time today to go ahead and talk about the course papers. The first one isn't due until week 8, which is still 4 weeks from now, but I want to address some points now because we always have some people come in week 7 and 8 and have some issues. There's always a couple of people that didn't plan well in advance, maybe, and have some problems in week 8. So I want to give you plenty of time to deal with this. Now, this movie analysis paper, there's 4 movies that have already been pre-selected for this project. And the reason these particular movies have been pre-selected is because they take place within an organization. The actual organization is the central character in the film. And so our class, we're studying organizational behavior. And so these films have already been vetted that they are going to be good examples for you to use where there's lots of organizational behaviors and topics included that you can use in your paper. Usually someone asks if they can use a different movie. That is possible. However, it needs to be a movie where it's about the organization, not just a really good movie. People have asked me about various movies that they like or that they enjoyed. It's not about, a movie that you like. It has to be a movie that's about an organization that provides you with enough material to write about organizational behavior. So I strongly suggest getting a copy of one of these recommended movies. If you have a different movie that you would like to suggest, you can do that. You can let me know. The problem is, I'll have to see that movie so that I can see if it applies to our class. And if I haven't seen it already, then I'll need advance notice to be able to watch it and approve it or disapprove it for the project. So if you are asking me about watching a different movie in week 7 or in week 8, I probably won't be able to approve it because I may not have time to get a copy of it and watch it in that short amount of time. If you're thinking right now that you want to try to use something different, you'll need to discuss that with me now by this week or next week um, to see if that movie is appropriate. But I strongly suggest not reinventing the wheel. Go with one of the 4 movies that are on here because these are going to give you lots of material that apply to our course to write about. So you're going to watch one of these movies and you're going to write about organizational behavior, not about the movie. This is very important. This paper is not meant to be a review of the movie and whether or not you liked it or the drama of the movie. This is an opportunity for you to identify the organizational behaviors that we have discussed in class. So some of the things that you will be tying into this movie, whichever one you choose, and the concepts that apply will be different based on which movie you see and your perspective of it. But you're going to talk about, like from chapter 1, you may discuss the labor market, whether it's primary or secondary labor market work, what type of careers, the type of organization this is. Is it a boundaryless organization? Do they do re-engineering? What from chapter 1 applies to this movie and why? Then in chapter 2, where we talked about personality and style, you might do a big 5 personality profile on one of the characters or discuss some of their personality traits, their locus of control. Any of the topics related to chapter 2, we want to know how do they apply to the movie. Then remember in chapter 3 we talked about decision making. So you might discuss the decision making styles within that are demonstrated within this film, and whether they do convergent or divergent thinking, or if they are conceptual decision makers. Then chapters 4 and 5 we talk about motivation. So you may discuss the intrinsic or extrinsic motivators present in the movie. You might discuss the Maslow's hierarchy, the theory X or theory Y managers, any of that information. Um, and it goes on and on. Each and every chapter in this book, we have discussed specific concepts and theories, and a lot of them are present within these films. You can see in the films people interacting within an organization, and displaying a lot of the behaviors that we've read about. That's the purpose of this paper. I want you to take all the concepts we've studied up to that point in week 8 and apply specific course concepts, specific terminology, specific theory from the chapters to the behavior that you see in the movie, and explain how those specific theories relate to what's being seen on film. So again, the assignment is not a critique of the film. It's not a review. It's not a book report on that particular film. It's using that actions in the film to explain specific concepts from organizational behavior. So start preparing yourself for that. If you don't have like Netflix or access to videos on demand, you may need to grab a copy of one of those from Amazon. They're all old movies, so I can't imagine any of them would cost more than a couple of dollars to get a copy of it if you had to buy one. Someone may have a copy you can borrow, maybe the library. But yeah, we always have somebody who realizes week 8 they don't have a copy of any of those films, and the reason that these instructions were given in week 1 and that I'm discussing them now here in week 5 is to make sure you have plenty of time to get a hold of one of those particular films. So you may want to start on that now if you think you may have any trouble at all getting a copy of one of those movies. And there is an alternative to watching the movie. You can do this alternative paper in which you're going to research the shuttle challenger and then discuss organizational behavior as it results to the shuttle challenger. This is a more difficult version of the assignment because people tend to get off track and start talking about the technical problems. The paper isn't about the technical problems, it's about organizational behavior. So you're going to talk about the communication process with the challenger, the formal roles, the chain of command, the boundaryless organization. You're still going to talk about organizational behavior just as it relates to the challenger. So that is an alternative. Like I said, it's a more difficult alternative because people tend to easily get off track. But if you choose to write about the shuttle challenger, remember, I don't want a bunch of pages about the technical difficulties and the O-rings. I want to know about the organizational behavior that led to this event. So that's your preview of the week 8 movie analysis paper. That paper is 75 points, so pretty significant. And I want to make sure you have time and all the tools you need in advance to do well on that. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. I'm in the instructor area with my phone number and email address. So have a great week 5. Thanks.